He's on service. He should be taking calls even tonight. Because he's on. Not that I'm telling you to call him, I'm on a meeting here. Sometimes, it's easiest to have him on service. He's on. Don't tell him you heard it from me.
Yes. Got mine in there. That was the visit from past month. I got one in mail. Yeah, right here. They're going to steal me for it. You don't want that.
Sacramento.
Oh, yeah?
Sacramento.
Good evening, everyone. Go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to this evening's meeting. Thank you for your attendance. A few absences, but we will try to get through. First off, this evening, you should each have been able to review our minutes from our last month's meeting. Any comments? Discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a move to accept. Patrick?
I saw an email from somebody that had a question about the minutes. I believe it was from a member of the audience.
The last one?
Yeah, for the minutes that we're going to approve. They were
For that,
concerned.
for the month before, Patrick, I don't remember.
The month
Last
before?
one.
Okay. I have a note on here, but
Yeah,
can I?
month before, we did have a correction from,
Then no, I'll move to accept.
Second.
thank you. You're always quick, Christian. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Thank you. We have the opportunity now for some public input. We have one that is related to an agenda item. We've tried to make it our routine to deal with those as the agenda items come up, but I do have three others that I guess are related to issues not on our agenda. So why don't we go ahead and take those. So Greg, you'd be up first. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening. Mine's real simple. I was the guy that wrote you. It might be my mistake in that I thought last month I talked about evictions and so on, and I thought it was a little bit different. So what I talked about was there were only a few ways to evict someone from a facility, and I gave the 81068.5 and so on, and I turned that into the secretary. And it says in there that if the needs can't be met, then a needs and service plan is to be done outlining how the services cannot be met at the current facility. And then it would stand to reason that if they can't meet that person's needs, that the next person coming in better not have the same needs. I thought that was kind of a pointed issue. Also, I was a little confused last month, and Ms. Fitzgibbon's been kind enough to advise me. I was a little confused about the possibility of room temperatures for people because I looked that up and it's somewhere between about 68 and maybe 84 or something like that. And I was hoping anything that's real common knowledge that a lot of people could know, maybe we can even put that on the internet or put a hyperlink over to wherever it is on the internet that could help them find that. I looked at it for a day and all I did was find it under facilities for elderly. So that would be a good thing to find. Again, and someone was just commenting about your legal fees and so on. You guys, bless your hearts, you're always getting sued. So I guess that's one of the reasons why they're kind of high. One of the pushbacks I would think on the most recent thing would be everybody at regional centers, I understand it's a mandated report of adult protective services. So that might be a common thing for everyone in the public off your site to know too. That APS will be, advised if they see anything that they would suspect as abuse. I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Emily Stillian?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, and Madam Executive Director. I'm Emily Stillian. I'm a conservator and family member. And I realize that my comments are not on an agenda item. However, I am aware that the the Welfare and Institutions Code does allow for that in board meetings. Lately, when passing by Inland Regional Center, I have seen multiple accesses teaming with representatives of the Service Employees International Union, passing out information and attempting to gain signatures on petitions. Attending last month's board meeting, I observed SEIU supporters out en masse. It has been my experience and opinion that when a person or group has something of value to offer, pressure and intimidation are unnecessary. During the recent election cycle, with its multitude of candidate mailings, I received this item. And it's actually a picture of a potential car buyer looking at a car in a used car lot. And the advice at the bottom is take a closer look before you buy. If I were speaking to the valued employees of Inland Regional Center, some of whom may be here, I would ask them to take a closer look before you vote. Consider that change is not always what we hope for or what we are promised. The change which is being offered by the SEIU may look good in the short term. Have you considered that your commitment to a union is for the long term and will be under the control of people you don't know and who don't know you, persuading you that they have your best interests at heart? Their long-term plans for you and your future may not be what you know or want. Take a closer look before you vote. Search for information. Do you want to pay dues? What people and causes will your dues support? Are these people and causes you wish to support? With what organizations does the union affiliate? Say, for example, the Democratic Socialists of America. And in closing, Greek and Roman mythology tells tales about the siren call. The siren call is identified as the enticing appeal of something potentially harmful. The SEIU may be your siren call. Change often has unintended consequences. Inform your choice. Your future is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki?
Well, good evening. A couple of things just kind of wanted to start out with because we didn't report last month. There was a lot going on, so I decided to forgo that. We did issue a letter to you as a board asking for some information that we had verbally requested back in March. We issued a letter in April. And in that letter that came back, a portion of the information came back. However, it was missing several things, so we'll be issuing another letter asking for those things. One of which is your bylaws, the number of seats, and those kinds of things. It's hard for us to know whether you have a quorum present because it's not announced, because we don't know how many vacancies there are on those kinds of things. But I also want to address a couple things because in the letter it kind of insinuated that our office isn't working in a collaborative spirit. And so I want to share with you, out of many agencies that our agency works with, Inland Regional Center is just one of those agencies. So maybe I haven't talked enough about what we've done in collaborating on self-advocate, family advocate types of events, because that's what we do, is we focus on clients. So I want to thank a couple of people too, so it's going to sound like an Oscar speech probably of some sort, but I'm not thanking them for me, I'm thanking them for the 170 people that showed up last Saturday here, and I generously thank you for offering the building that belongs to the consumers to them to have their event. But I want to thank especially some people that without this, the event wouldn't have gone off. That's Jeanette Zito, Alice Chu, Patty Harold, David Reyes, and two people that actually aren't in the training unit who make a huge difference at this agency, Janice Coda and Linda Ambrose, because without them, the mailers wouldn't even gotten out. So all of those people had a tremendous impact in making that a successful event on Saturday. We funded the event to get it started. Inland kicked in $27 per person to cover the food and those kinds of items, so I want to thank you for that. One of our biggest collaborative events, so if you're thinking we're not collaborating, we are. The second thing is I work every day in collaboration, just about every day it seems like, probably to Jennifer more than once a day, but with your appeals unit and Stephanie Zermano and Leanne Pearson, especially Sheriff Fontaine, the secretary there, in resolving cases that are in appeal and working with some issues that we have right now going on that are frustrating for both of us, having to do with authorized representative, where the area board can assign somebody as an authorized rep that's causing some delays in hearing settings for the calendar and things like that. So we collaborate with them at least on a weekly basis at minimum, probably 2 to 3 times a week. And then I want to thank your Director of Children's Services, who, without her, we wouldn't have been able to resolve some very, very, very intense cases. We're talking about like 7-year-olds trying to kill family members kind of situations, and trying to come up with some creative solutions on keeping these kids at home if we can, or looking for potential placements to return them to home. So in the nature of that, I want to share with you that just one of the agencies that we work with, we work very highly in a collaborative spirit. So I was a little confused by that coming back from the board in the letter. I do want to let you know about a couple of other things that are going on. We are going to be starting a series of IEP, Individualized Education Plan, trainings and individualized program plan trainings out in the community. So if you know somebody or a community that would like to have one, we're more than willing to go out and do that. The other thing I just kind of want to draw to the board's attention is that a lot of people get up here and I think they say some stuff that is a little bit sensationalized. However, last time there was a report by one of your vendors about some pretty serious things that we heard that I hope that your quality assurance unit here took serious. And that was things like not turning on the heat until the temperature hit the 60-something mark, not turning on the air conditioning until it hit the 90-something mark. And if you're trying to make an impact, that's one thing. But if you're saying that you're denying clients' rights, or that you're not providing the kind of service that you guys are paying for, then I would hope that somebody in the quality assurance unit heard that and actually followed through with an investigation. So, thank you.
And Christy, we haven't forgotten you, but we'll get to the agenda item, and we'll ask for your input then. All right, so Anna Godoy.
I just want to start off by saying my name is Anna Godoy, and I'm very nervous to come up here. I'm an employee of the Regional Center, a service coordinator, and I've been here for 13 years. And as I said, I think it's been 2 months now. I came back the first time, I believe it was in March, to speak about the parent support group, the Spanish parent support group. And coming here, it really produced positive results for them, and I really appreciate that they were able to come back. And it's unfortunate that they had to leave, but at least now they're back home. So I just wanted to say thank you. My other issues are, as an employee that works with the Hispanic families, I have come to know a lot of their issues. And I have become an advocate for them, a very, very good advocate with the trainings that I have received from IRC or the trainings that I have sought out myself. And so I have identified a lot of their needs, and one of the issues that I have brought up before, and we're told that we can come, to Regional Center and, express our concerns, and I feel it's my responsibility as a service coordinator to step up and say, this is what I'm seeing, and this is how we can help them. So it's not coming in an aggressive manner or in a tone, it's how do we help our consumers? That's where it's coming from. And I have mentioned a few times that they do not receive their IPPs in Spanish. How is this population ever going to be equal stakeholders or equal players, whether it comes to their IEP or requesting services from us? It's not going to happen because they don't understand English. And so when I go to IEPs, the school district at least asks them, I don't know if it's there's a law behind this or if it's just out of courtesy, do you want your IEP translated? And when we look at the statistics in the both counties and we see that we're close to 40% Hispanic in both counties. The annual report on the IRC website, has the biggest portion of the pie is for the Hispanic community. So I don't understand how we're not meeting that need. I think it's an unmet need. I think we're also could possibly be in violation of some acts, such as the Dime Alley Aleatory Bilingual Services Act, Dime Alley Aleatory Bilingual Services Act. Sorry. But this act, it talks about, state agencies providing translated documents to the populations that they serve. That's one part of the act. The other part of the act is who is going to be translating these documents. And since I came on board 13 years ago, I have brought to the attention of IRC management that us bilingual staff are not compensated for providing bilingual services. And I remember being told at that time, there's no money in the budget. Recently, I brought up the issue again when we got our new director, and we sat down, with multiple units, and what are the issues? She, opened up the forum, and I was excited to be able to bring up my concerns and say, we have so much extra work that when I'm not phone duty, I'm phone duty. Why? How does that happen? Because whoever is scheduled to answer the phones that day, if they get a Spanish call and they're English speaking, guess who they're going to go look for? Then I got to go and answer those calls. Or if a parent shows up at regional center, they need to interface with somebody, phone duties, English speaking, let's go find a Spanish speaking person on our unit. Which I am proud to serve my people. And that is not, please don't misunderstand what my concern is. Because I have the highest respect for them. And they deserve excellent customer service. So I'm going to greet them with a smile. But at the same time, I need to turn around and bring my frustrations and my concerns to this forum and say, I've sent emails. I sent an email last year, May 2011, for the employee input meeting. Is it employee committee input meeting?
You had it right the first time.
Okay. Okay, well, I sent my question and there was no response. It's been a year. And my question was, on the Disability Rights California website, it says that these families have the right to receive notices of actions. The Dime Alley Act says the consumers of the state of California have the right to receive pertinent records, pertinent documents in their native language. And so, where do we go from here? How do we fix this? Because I'll tell you right now, I cannot translate notices of actions or IPPs. There's not the time and the date to do that. So I'm bringing my concerns here, hoping to get answers, hoping to get support. There is a vendor, which is called New World Interpreter or Translator Services. We use them here and there when we have a parent, that's pushing, I want my IPP in Spanish. But that shouldn't be the exception. We should be offering the parents, this is my opinion, when I go to the home and they invite me in and I sit down with them and say, what are your dreams for your child? I feel it's my responsibility to say to them, here it is, it's in your language, this is what you asked for, this is what you wanted. And at least offering them that choice, I think, is a respect. And it's their right, as we're mandated to do by the Dime Alley Aleatory Bilingual Services Act. So I'm asking if someone can review this act, see if it applies to us, because I believe it does. And also, answer, the request, and I say this with confidence. I'm not the only Spanish-speaking staff that is concerned about bilingual pay. I've worked here for 13 years. I've been patient. I've asked. There's no money in the budget, but yet there's money in the budget for other items. And so I feel that I'm a valuable employee. I love my job, but it's about time we receive compensation. And I would really appreciate if I could get an answer to those questions. If somebody can notify me, or how could we do this?
And I think it's something that we need to look into as an agency and then make some decisions about how we can do that or not do that. I am concerned in terms of what you're saying, in terms of the NOAs and the IPPs and so forth, and that's something that we will definitely look into.
Okay. Okay, so I will be hoping to receive a response. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, we'll come to one other public input as we get to it in the agenda this evening. Moving on, I'm going to purposefully keep my report brief this evening. The Executive Committee has been very active since our last meeting here, but much of what we have been dealing with are agenda items that we will get to later this evening, particularly with regard to our financial report. So I really don't want to steal anyone's thunder, especially from you guys. So I'm going to keep my words brief this evening. But I just want to reassure everyone that we as an executive committee have been putting in a lot of extra hours to try to keep up with everything that's going on financially in terms of budget and board recruitment. We have many things on our plate and on our agenda right now, and we are doing our best to try to keep up with things. I appreciate that we do keep hearing over and over again that there appear to be delays in getting back on certain things. Please be assured that we're doing the best that we can, both as a board and especially as an executive committee, to try to keep up with everything. But there's a lot going on right now, as I'm sure everyone's aware. And with that, I'm over to you.
Okay. I too am going to keep my report pretty brief because you have quite a few things on the agenda that need to be discussed. One of the things that I do try to keep you up to date on is our basic statistics. And right now today we are serving 26,348 active clients. And that is a growth of close to about 300 people from the previous month. And that's been our average most of the year. The other thing that I did want to draw your attention to and go over just a little bit with you is the reorganization that has taken place. And you all had asked for a current organizational chart, and that was in your packet. Some of the reorganization took place back in January when we learned that Dr. Ross was going to be out for a little bit longer, and we did need to shore up the support to those units. And also, then in February, she submitted her request for retirement. And with some of the changes that we had put into place at a temporary basis, excuse me, we made official. And then we also had the opportunity to hire a new financial person and also the director of community services. And everybody has been working very, very hard and very diligently to look at some new ways of organizing things and making it work a little smoother. Also take a look at functional organization charts and see what needed to happen in order to make that work. Back in January, I think you'll remember that we had asked Lavinia Johnson if she would take the responsibility for intake and children's services, as well as early start and the clinical team. And so you can see that happened, and it was beginning to work, and we decided to go forward with that and make that a permanent assignment. And so right now, Lavinia is working with intake, clinical services, early start, children, and children's services. And then Margie picked up transition, also picked up the ICF unit, and that has been working really nicely as well. So that stayed as it was tried and tested, and so that is working well. And then Gustavo was looking at kind of his functional pieces and felt like that it was necessary to have an accounting finance entity within the department and also the administrative services piece. And you can see under that the managers that are working in those divisions. And then you also see the other part of the master trust, the account technician, revenue, payroll, systems programming, visualization, and purchase of service, all of which are very active as well. And then Salon, with as being the director of community services, looked at his and has had the opportunity to hire several people, confirmed that Robert Mendez with Resource Development and Transportation was definitely in the right spot, in the right position. Also, quality assurance, Vince Toms took that position just recently. And then we looked at the training and, the community information and training division, and decided to split those. And so it's now events and training, and Regina Ruffo took events and training, and Patty has community engagement. And this is where a lot of the consumer advocacy work and the outreach work really takes place, which is definitely one of her major fortes. So we will see how all of that works out, and we feel like it's going to be very successful. So those are the major things that have happened within the organization, and we're going to test it and make certain that it works effectively. And as you well know, sometimes organizations need to shift a little bit after you've worked with things, and this came together really well. So we'll be implementing that and keeping you up to date with how things are working and how that's going. Any questions about any of this? Any of the changes, shifting and so forth? Okay. That was really the only two things I wanted to report.
I'd like to move on to our financial report. Yes?
Hello, everybody, and the board members. I'm very pleased to be making this report tonight for several reasons. I will be reporting on the status of operations, POS, cash flow, and our line of credit capabilities. As you may recall, at the last meeting, I reported that we had a slight surplus after the effect of 2 furlough days. $86,000 surplus as of March 31st, projecting into June 30th. Right about that time, actually, the report that I wanted to present at the last meeting was for April. But in making the final review of our April budget projection, I became aware of an inconsistency on a line item that affected salaries, wages, and benefits. Specifically, the health benefits line, it was overstated to the tune of $487,000. In the month, the reason for the distortion was because in the month of March, the adjusting process to our accounting records had begun. And in the month of March, we adjusted or reduced our health benefits expense by $231,000. So that's another way of saying that our IRC expense for health benefits was overstated by $487,000. In the month of May, we completed the cleanup on our health benefits line item. And the explanation that I had for that variance as of the month of April was that the open enrollment didn't go as planned in the latter part of last year. Employee amounts were not available at the time of payment. The numbers began to become clear in January, but at the time there were several audits going on, including one from the IRS, which I'm happy to report was clean and it's behind us. So as of April, we still had $256,000 of adjustments that needed to be made to further reduce the health benefits line to the total of $487,000. The remaining $256,000 adjustment was made in the month of May. You may also notice that I am not reporting on the April projection because we were able to advance all the way to the month of May, which is the month that I'm reporting tonight. So the projection that I'm presenting to you tonight through the end of the fiscal year, which is on 6/30/2012, it's made as of May 2012. Now, having said what I said about reducing our expense for IRC by $487,000, there was also another minor adjustment from Master Trust, where expenses for key management and Master Trust had not been allocated and reimbursed back to IRC from Master Trust. The combined effect of the health benefits adjustment and the Master Trust adjustment give us a combined surplus now for the projection through June 30th of 2012 of $662,000. That is a surplus that we are now projecting through the end of this fiscal year. The financials or the budget projections that you have in front of you show a surplus of $40,592 instead of the amount that I just mentioned, and that is because on a preliminary basis, I have allocated a tentative plan that would reduce that deficit down to, that surplus down to $40,000. Now, the plan hasn't been discussed. I discussed it with Carol, but it hasn't been discussed with our managers. It hasn't been discussed with our directors, and we are going to be engaging them tomorrow morning at our managers meeting. And we expect to have a complete and final plan of how we will reduce the surplus by Friday. Right, Carol? That is our commitment to the board. So that was the good and the bad news. The good news is that we are in a far better condition than we were before, and that was the part of the operations that I wanted to report. If there's any questions on that, I can move on to the portion that affects POS.
Why do we have to reduce the surplus down to $40,000?
Oh, it's only because I implemented a preliminary plan that, as I said, hasn't been discussed with our managers or with our directors. And we will address that plan tomorrow at our meeting with the department managers. and the directors will all be in attendance.
Does that mean if everybody's in agreement, there will still be a
A slight surplus.
of not 600,000?
Right. We will absorb the surplus and apply it to expenses accordingly.
Okay, I don't understand. You have a surplus of $600,000+.
Mhm.
We're going to reduce it down to, if the plan is accepted,
To 40,000.
where's the $560,000 going?
Well, as I said, the plan hasn't been discussed. It's a preliminary plan that we will be addressing with our managers and our directors tomorrow.
According to the mandate, are we allowed to finish the year with a surplus?
We
That's
prefer,
an
no. The mandate is you utilize your funds and you cannot go into a deficit.
Can you end up with we're a nonprofit organization. Can we end up with a surplus?
There's no reason for it.
Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Can I respond to that?
Please.
Regional centers need to come to a zero.
Yeah.
If there are any surplus funds at the end of the year or slightly, going into July, that can be shifted to purchase a service with the department's consent. We do need to discuss that with them if we have a surplus at the end of the year.
Or the surplus goes into the general fund of all regional centers, is that correct?
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
It would go back to
That's
the
okay.
state
Got it.
to utilize within the system.
Got it.
Yeah, and obviously we wouldn't want that because we have a lot of needs and wants at the center level. So my job is not to leave any money on the table, but also not to wait to any deficit condition.
Fine line you walk.
Any other questions on ops?
Who sets the annual budget? I know the state tells us this is how much we get, but who decides all the line item budgets? Is that decided by the board or is that decided by staff?
Staff would present a budget to you to review based on that allocation, and many times it's done kind of against history, and then you look at the things that you know are going to increase or might be changing in the upcoming year, and would itemize those out, and then the board would indeed make the final decision about the application of those dollars in those different line item areas.
When do we normally do that?
I think last year we were able to do that in August because fortunately the budget was signed on time and we knew what the allocation was going to look like. And to be quite honest, I can't remember exactly.
Oh, no,
It wasn't much past that. It may have gone into September based on your schedule of meetings.
But we have to wait until the state decides what we get, and then they adopt the budget, and then we get to adopt our budget.
Correct.
Okay. When in this does the board readdress overages? Do we have a threshold? In other words, if it's going to be 10% over the budget, we have to look at it. The reason I'm asking is in data processing maintenance, we're almost $400,000 over budget.
I think that's certainly something that the board can address or ask questions about. Sometimes with the business committee, you all would have the opportunity to look at that before it came to the full board, have that explanation, and then be able to report it.
But we don't have in other words, once it hits a certain threshold, it has to come back to the board. Some organizations.
There is not a threshold that has been set at this
We'll
point.
put that on the business committee's agenda.
You can put that on the business committee's agenda. As a board member, that's your committee.
Okay.
Yeah, some of those parameters and some of those guidelines that you all would feel more comfortable with or would like to see put into place is certainly your jurisdiction to do that.
Patrick, bear in mind that, as I said, the surplus is all been on a preliminary basis has been spread on the expense line items. So the variance that you're showing is because it includes and anticipates that we will be investing some of that surplus in additional IT equipment to make sure that our roads and bridges are operating properly.
I guess my question is, what if that's not what the board wants to do with the money?
Well, that's why we have the business committee meeting, and we'll be addressing that, right?
We would be addressing it, and we'll have to look at that together. The other other thing that is difficult is, we're coming right up to the end of the fiscal year, and we may be in a situation,
We don't have a choice, I understand this year.
Yeah.
Maybe for next year.
in the future, it is definitely a beneficial practice.
Right. But if we had to leave money on the table or buy computers, we'd buy computers, right?
Not necessarily, maybe we want to buy a car.
Okay. What kind of car do you want?
I'm just saying.
You want a Rolls Royce?
Maybe you want to have better cookies, I don't know.
You're good.
But $600,000 isn't chump change.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. And we did want to get the managers and directors' viewpoints and input before we made any kind of final decision.
Thank you.
I think we have one more question.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, I know you guys were struggling last month on to whether or not to do another furlough day.
Right.
How much was saved from imposing that other furlough day on all the employees?
How much was saved?
Yeah, to the budget. I mean, you guys did the furlough day, the other furlough day that was.
Out of the 4 furlough days, we only had 2 furlough days.
Okay.
Only 2. We canceled the 2 furlough days that were coming up. The one for June and the one for May were canceled. So we didn't. This surplus has nothing to do with the cancellation of the furlough days.
Okay.
How much was saved by one furlough day?
Approximately $115,000, right?
So the 600,000 is more than the 2 furlough days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, furlough. Okay, so if there are no other questions on operations, I will move to the POS side. This is the first time that I will be reporting on the POS, but I do have you may not have the reports that I presented at the last meeting, but it's important that I tell you how it's affecting us, because as of the March projection for POS, we were showing a deficit of $24 million, projecting a deficit of $24 million in over expenditures from what was given to us via the C amendments. And the picture has changed drastically with our new projection with the May projection that you have in front of you. The deficit is being brought down to $6,125,000. And I have an explanation for that. We received a new C5 amendment in the month of April for $6 million, which increased our total budget allocation for the year. Then in May, we received the C6 allocation, which increased our allowance again by another $8 million. And I did some analysis on how we calculate the late bills for our projections. And I may explain a little bit about this, is that the late bills, as you know, are expenses that are incurred, but we haven't yet received. They're kind of on the pipeline. And what I did this time to true up the number as best as I could was to look at the trend for the last 10 months. And as you may imagine, for the first 8 months of the 10 months, or the first 6 months of the 10 months, the numbers are pretty steady, and all the dollars are pretty much stabilized. Because as the monthly buckets of service codes claims materialize in the way of bills that we receive, the numbers are steady and you can predict on them. But if you look at the same buckets for the same service codes for the last 3 months or 4 months, you will see that some of them are fluctuating still wildly. Why? Because the expenses are in transit. But we can predict what it will be based upon prior history. We can trend out and we can forecast. With the prior technology or methodology that we had, we were estimating that our late bills were about $9 million. And based upon the new methodology that I implemented, now we're down to $5 million. Now, the important thing is that we don't want to underproject late bills to the state of to DDS. But also, it's not good to overproject. And up to the month of March, I was kind of going along with our methodology as it was built in on our books. but it was time to start looking into that in earnest, which is what I did in the month of May, and that's why we have that new late bills amount going from $9 million to about $5 million, which brings us to a deficit of $6 million. Now, this is very important, and it's because it affects our cash flow. Let me come back to that point in a minute and tell you a little bit of our cash flow situation. As of the beginning of the month, we had in our treasury, Mr. Treasurer, $25 million at the Union Bank account. We spend about $22 million, $23 million per month to run the operation, ops and POS. So we only have enough for 1 month based upon what we have in the bank, looking at the numbers that we had on June 1st. DDS has advised us that there will be no further payments through June 30th, 12, based upon the claims we have on the pipeline. So we pretty much have to start addressing our line of credit issue rapidly. And in conversations with the Union Bank, and Carol and I have been in conferences with the Union Bank, this is where the deficit comes into play. Union Bank has a line of credit with us for $44 million. But we can only access that $44 million to the extent that we have receivable from DDS. And they calculate that by saying you have your C6 allocation up to now, and you have submitted claims, and some of them have gotten paid. Whatever is unpaid is your receivable minus the deficit. So it is important that we reduce the $25 million deficit down to the $6 million, because the deficit has an impact on our ability to draw on that line of credit, because Union Bank says, well, if it is not a receivable, it may be a deficit, and eventually the DDS may make you whole. But for us, it is not a receivable that we can grasp firmly, so we cannot advance you line of credit amounts based upon the amounts of deficits. Is that clear? Did I?
And how do you get it?
I'm sorry?
How do you get it?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's easy. We calculate what the total amounts were given to us through the C6. In other words, every C1, C2, C3, they release allocations to us. So we know what the total budget would be. Right now, we know what the total budget will be, or allocation will be, through the C6. If we aggregate all the C amendments that they've sent us, we know what a specific amount is. From that amount, we deduct everything. We deduct everything that we've gotten paid for. In the way we send monthly claims to DDS. So the claims that we send to DDS are our receivables, because DDS has said that they will pay us up to a certain amount, net of what they already paid us. So if they, let's say for the sake of argument, they said you're going to get $1 million, and we submitted claims for $70 million, but they already paid 50, then we have a $20 million receivable, right? However, they say, but if you're projecting a deficit, then that $20 million receivable, they say, is not really truly a complete receivable if we are exceeding our C6 total budget allocation. So it is important to true up the deficit amounts to where we have a realistic late bills projection, so that we can then prove to the Union Bank that we have a true receivable from DDS based upon all of the allocations they've given us that aggregates to a certain number. Is that clear, Isma? Well, anyway, let me. So our plan right now is, because we are going to be running out of cash by June 30th with the current amount that we have in the bank, is to request that our line of credit, to apply for a line of credit of $24 million. which is far below the $44 million. So it's a receivable that we could demonstrate readily to Union Bank that is ours. So they look at our C6 allocations, they know how much money we've gotten paid, they say, yeah, you truly have a receivable from them. So the $24 million will cover us all the way through July of 2012. So now we have all the way June, all the way through July with a line of credit. If DDS does not fund us on time, and this would be my first go around to working in this system at that level with that type of a setting, then we may need to go back to Union Bank and ask for more money out of the $44 million. Now, if we've already drew 24 out of the 44, that means we have $20 million available. Now it becomes critical because now the deficit may be playing a part that potentially could reduce that $20 million allocation down to only 14 because our deficit projection is of $6 million. And they will not fund the deficit amounts. They only will fund up to the C6 amendments that they have given to us. Is that
making sense? The good news is we have a line of credit.
Yep.
We are able to apply against that line of credit for $24 million to make certain that we have funds through the end of July. And then we have an additional $14 million that we can access because we have still showing on the books receivables. And so we can match that and draw down some additional funds if necessary. And as Gus said, that would take us through the middle of August. And those of you that have been working with regional centers for a while, you know that sometimes the budget is not signed on time. So this is a mechanism to help us bridge that and write it out if absolutely essential and necessary. So that's part of the reason why we're really looking at this so seriously and strategically to make it happen and not be left without any cash in the bank.
right? And working closely with our bankers.
Why is the state not going to send us any money?
They're out of money. They're out of cash.
They
So
have the same
they're in
cash
breach
flow.
of contract.
They have the same difficulty we do.
Right. But in theory, though, aren't they in breach of contract? Because we have a contract that says they're going to send us $238 million. I'm just asking. I'm not attacking the poor state. But in theory, they're in breach of contract.
In theory.
Is that not true, Steve?
I would have to look at the, in more detail. I couldn't tell you right now.
Now, are they paying us for the cost of the loan?
No. I'm coming back to that. When IRC has maxed out its line of credit, we estimate that the expense associated with servicing that debt can be anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000, depending on the timing on how we draw the funds. Because we pay a certain amount of interest daily based upon the amount of monies that we have drawn. And the two amounts of funds that I suggested we'll be drawing is just a simplistic way. We may have to break it up into 3 draws, that sort of thing. But simplistically, we'll try to max out that line of credit to stay liquid until we get the allocation from the state for the new year.
And continue to provide the service.
Of course.
But the state's not paying us for the cost of the money?
No, it's our operating expense.
It's included in our operation expenses. We have to plan for that.
Yeah. We plan.
If we have to use the line.
We planned $65,000 expense. My predecessor planned $65,000 expense when he set up the budget. So I went ahead and increased it by another $20,000 since I was allocating surplus. So now we have a reserve of $85,000 for the interest, and we can increase it to $100,000 easily because it's important that we have that line of credit. Luckily, we have the surplus situation, so that helps in that regard.
Now, is it possible then that when all's said and done, at the end of the year, the state says we're only going to give us our $238 million, and we don't care how you get the $6 million? Because you're saying we're going to be over $6 million. So you're saying roughly we're gonna spend about 244 million.
I don't think so, because my understanding is that the Landsherman Act is, it's a, what do you call it, an entitlement law, and it's open-ended. In the state of California, that's what the legislation passed, and that's the way it is. So I think IRC is obligated to continue to provide the services because that's what the law says.
That's
Well, I'm not arguing that, I'm just saying that, anyway, it just seems like a hell of a way to run a show. Not us, the state.
It is a challenge.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and that happens at the federal level too. So.
Well, and this is kind of one of the things that happens with these different allocations that come throughout the year, is the state has a better picture as time goes along in terms of what it might have available from other centers. Because other centers may spend less than what was allocated or what was originally projected. And so the balancing of those centers throughout the year happens, and that's where some of those dollars come from. And then at the end of the year, they look at the whole system and balance that out.
Interesting.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there's only been like 1 or 2 times that they've had to go back to the legislators and ask for more money. And one time when they did that, they've wound up with an excess already. And so it's one of the things the state watches very, very carefully so that the department does not go back and ask for that when there's probably money in the system statewide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick? By tradition, Inland has always asked its vendors to also seek a line of credit to defer some payments, to extend out your time. Has that already been done, even though we're all praying for an on-time budget? Have you actually requested that vendors seek their own line of credit as well?
To my knowledge,
I don't, that discussion hasn't come up yet in the
Not yet
DAC,
this
so
year.
it hasn't been done formally yet.
but I think that would be a prudent business decision for all the vendors to have a line of credit available, just like IRC has that line of credit available.
It's
Because
been traditionally done here, so that's why I was asking.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It's been traditionally, I have 1 ear that's not hearing, so.
It's
I don't know
okay.
if I'm yelling or not. It's traditionally at Inland, it has been the process that they had asked their vendors to seek their line of credit as well, so that they could defer their payments to hold the money so that there would be no disruption in consumer services. So I was just curious if that had been done yet, since we're approaching the end of the fiscal year.
It has not been done. We can certainly
But
put
the
that on
DAC
the
meeting is
agenda.
Monday, so we'll bring that.
Thank you. Sorry.
Just a quick question. Do we have to authorize the line of credit?
Very good.
You already have.
Oh.
Yeah, you did authorize it a couple of meetings ago.
Okay.
On your agenda, it does, there's a line item there about update on filling vacant positions. And at this point in time, we are sitting with some vacant positions and are recruiting for those. And I think, Stimley, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have about 6 vacant positions that we're recruiting for at this point in time.
That's correct.
Well, we've added a few.
Oh, day by day, it goes up and down.
Yeah, we added 2, so we went up to 8.
So we're making progress on that.
Okay, sorry. Distracting myself. I am open to entertain a motion to accept financial report. Unless there's further discussion first.
I move to, that we would accept the report as given.
Second.
Those in favor? And opposed, if any? All right. Patrick,
Oh,
Business Committee.
Business Committee is moving along. We're looking, hopefully, we will have our first meeting after July 9th. Okay? Myself and 2 other board members have agreed to serve, Christina and Jack, on the committee. And then we're supposed to be doing a recruitment, I think that's coming down a little later here, for board committees, for 2 members of the public from the outside. So it'll be a 5-member committee. The staff would be Gus. And we're looking at meeting probably on a Thursday afternoon, late evening, late afternoon, starting in July. Because the board needs to ratify who's on the committee.
Sounds like a great start.
So that's where we're going.
Thank you.
And the agenda's already built.
How often will those meetings take place for someone who might be interested in
Once a
signing?
month.
Once a month.
And we'll probably pick the same Thursday, it's going to be. The second Thursday, the 5th Thursday, that would be good. We wouldn't have to meet every month then.
There you go.
And they would be here in, a regional center or someplace. So they'll start in July after the board has ratified the members of the committee. So if you know anybody who's interested, have them send Sandra a letter.
Thank you very much. Be looking forward to more of your committee reports. Ella, would you like to present the slate of officers for our upcoming year?
Yes, I will. For 2012 and 2013, our slate of officers will be President Dr. Drew Cutler, Vice President Alma Garrett, Secretary Mavette Fields, Treasurer Patrick King, ARCA Representative Tom Cosan. So that's my slate, and I'm presenting it to you for approval of vote.
I move that this slate be approved as read. I second.
Second, okay. Those in favor?
Discussion?
Go ahead, sorry.
Since Tom isn't here, I'm assuming he knows that we're, okay. Well, just an assumption, and you know what happens when you make assumptions, so I just wanted to.
It was okay.
He doesn't
Tom
know.
knows.
Tom knows.
Okay.
Thank you for speaking up. It is-
We could just tell him later.
Send him an email.
I try not to volunteer people in abstention. Thank you. Let's see, I think we're going to vote. Did we all, any nays? Thank you. All right. We are now moving on to new business and the board recruitment. So Christy, Renee, Sepulveda, Burchett, this is your opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, board members. I had multiple things I was going to talk about during public comment. I'd gotten a card out front, and they said you have to do everything in 5 minutes. So some of these things are not on the agenda. I wanted to bring up to you guys again the idea of a parent advisory committee. I brought this forward at the March meeting this year, and someone from the board had mentioned that they thought we already did that. We do have support group meetings here for moms supporting moms and dads supporting dads, but we do not have a parent advisory committee. We have a vendor advisory committee, consumer advisory committee, but no parent advisory committee. So I would like to request this as an action item for your next agenda next month. I also wanted to bring up the autism committee. For those of you who don't know, the autism committee is made up of several what they call chiefs here at the regional center. They make decisions about those who have a diagnosis of autism, many times without ever meeting those who have autism. It's outside the IPP process. And most recently, I've been hearing from several vendors that provide ABA services that there has been virtually a threat to vendors that there is a 2-year maximum on ABA services for consumers. And this also was told to parents at a meeting that I think Dr. Gibelli presented at for the area board a couple years ago. I followed up with her and asked her the research on that statement, that ABA was only good for 2 years, and I never got a response back. I tried emailing too, never got a response back. The motion on your guys' on this agenda that I'm speaking to is about the board. I've asked to be interviewed for the board, to be on your board, since September of 2010. When new leadership took over as far as secretary, I resubmitted my application, asking to be interviewed. I've gone up to several of you guys after the meetings and let you know I'm interested. And also the last one, since there was a call for Hispanic people, to let you know I am indeed Hispanic. So I'm willing to be a watchdog, which is what this agency needs, being on probation and all. I think that that's important going forward. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
I did want to let you all know that Patrick King did provide me with a sample of a board recruitment advertisement that was in the paper. And we have drafted that, and we will have to find a paper that is willing to put that in for free and see what we're able to do and what we can come up with. But it is something that we are going to, well, it is posted, not that particular ad, but the need for board members, board committee people, etc., is on the website. And hopefully people will gradually gravitate toward that, and we will have some interest. Also, with starting committees, I know we have the business committee, the nominating committee certainly needs to stay with the board, but business committee can have committee members on it. We also will be looking at formulating, again, the audit committee. And so that is an area that sometimes people that are not necessarily on the board are very beneficial. And it's about maybe 2 or 3 meetings a year would potentially be necessary for the audit committee. They were put into place for nonprofit corporations through the Charity Integrity Act. And members from the board, as well as community members, are on that committee. And they have the responsibility of selecting the auditors, and they work for you. And the audit committee reports to you and does that whole function of helping to select the auditors. The auditors report to them, and then they, in turn, the audit committee is responsible for reporting to you along with the auditor. Any findings or anything like that, and they could be called into action if there was something that the auditors discovered during an audit period that they wanted to talk with that committee about, so they would have that access. But it is something that we do have it in place, but we need some additional members, and primarily community people that would be willing to fulfill that responsibility. So let us know. Yes.
And also the fact that we are actively seeking proposals from CPA firms, because
yes,
we need a new CPA firm to come in to do more.
They will be active because we do, as Gus said, because of the law that was done through part of the trailer bill language last year, it did say that regional centers could only use the same auditor for 5 years in a row. And we had hit that mark with our current auditor. And so we are going to go out to bid and get proposals for that to happen and have opportunities to select. So,
Carol, if I could just ask,
yes,
if someone from the community wants to be on the audit committee, how do they go about that?
they can contact Patrick, or they can contact my office or Gus's office, and then we can talk with them about it and see if it's something that they're really interested in once they understand the full responsibility.
But at least it's for a short period of time.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of action, then not a lot of action, and then a lot of action. You know, because you get people. On our recruiting, are we doing any outreach besides the newspaper ad and the website?
Well, one of the things that I need to talk with the managers about tomorrow is seeing if there is a way that we can do some outreach in some of the different meetings that they attend, some of the different activities that they're involved in, and hopefully their staff as well as themselves and the other directors can see what we might be able to generate out there in terms of interest.
Would it be possible to use the PR firm, whatever we call those people, the consultant, to contact the elected officials? Say, hey, you know, we're looking for board members, because usually they have a lot of contacts.
Well, and actually that's one of the ways that we got Christina to join us. She initiated the information herself from one of the legislators, and they referred her to us to learn a little bit about us and so forth. But
And we got a business committee person right after she.
But it definitely is something that we can work on and put a letter together and send out.
Or even an email. I like Sandra's "Go Green" on the bottom of the agenda.
Yes, that's a good idea. Thank you. Move on.
Can we move on?
Okay. The other thing that is on your agenda has to do with the probation response. This response is due on the 18th, back to DDS, and the main things that we needed to respond to this time is actually the conflict of interest policy needed to be submitted to them, and so we did that on May the 17th. That already went up. We need to put together procedures for the community placement plan process, and it primarily has to do with the grants and the contracting and the RFP processes, and we've done part of this, but we need to put it all in place in procedure. So we'll be finishing that up. The board training is an item that's on your agenda tonight to take a look at some of the proposed topics and methods of training and see if that meets your needs or if you have other suggestions or other things that you'd like to do. We will be working and finishing up the communication plan. We just are updating that. And then one of the things that Salon Escobar and his team have been working on are some of the things that the department wanted us to move ahead on with transportation. Even though that is part of the appeal, there are some very specific things that we need to go ahead and act on and put into place. And so they've started working at it, and we'll be able to report the progress of what that looks like and what the steps are and what we'll be doing in that area.
So is there a target date for that report?
We have to have our response to the department on the 18th of this month. So the pieces are coming together well. We just have to put it all together and put it in the mail.
Would it be possible, you have a nice spreadsheet, would it be possible to have that given out at the board meeting?
Sure. I'm sorry. I thought we gave it out to you last time.
Not this time.
Didn't see that?
Yeah, last time.
This-
I just meant every board meeting so that we.
An update.
An update.
Sure. Don't always have an update, but yeah, we can do that for you. Not a problem. Any other questions?
All right. We, I know, as an executive committee, have talked about our calendar going into the new year. And we had a couple of Mondays that fell on holidays. I don't actually have the dates in front of me yet.
October and November.
October and November, yeah. So those were moved to just the very next evening, Tuesday. So we all have a chance to see the calendar going into the next year. Again, I know the executive committee has had a chance to both see it and review it and talk about it. Any questions or? I know a couple of you are leaving us after tonight, so but for the rest of us, I think most of us will be here through the next calendar year. Any questions? I know we've kind of stepped up our pace a bit since this, in my history anyway, used to be kind of every other month. But moving forward, as we need to do with as much as we have to deal with and the tasks that lay before us, we'll continue, I think, at this accelerated pace for a while. And then Carol has already referenced the training, and again, Patrick.
Do we need a motion to accept that because it says it's under action?
Well, I'll be happy to.
Well, no, I'm just asking.
No, I think we should. Now that we've presented it to the full board here, unless somebody has some conflict or something, but
I'll move we accept it.
we're good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Did he beat you?
He did. He usually does.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those abstaining. Thank you. All right, so we are proceeding with our board training schedule, and we're going to have some in-servicing before our board meetings, and then we're going to try to have some additional sessions, probably 2 hours at a time, to deal with a variety of issues. And certainly as we bring on new board members, this is a critical part of the training. I'm sure, Jack, you appreciate that. Yes. I'd like to know what your responsibilities are. What are we doing here?
That's right.
So this is always an ongoing process because as we have a certain amount of turnover here to both keep up with the training of new board members, but also many of the issues that we deal with here, I think, particularly those of a financial nature for someone such as myself, we appreciate Gus and kind of bringing things down to earth a little bit, but still, it's always nice to be able to sit down and discuss these things in a little more detail than often we can do in a public forum such as this. We continue to be open to any suggestions for topics or things that you would like to see on our training schedule. And again, this is something that's necessary. We all need the help to help keep us up to speed with what our responsibilities are here. But of course, we have a contractual obligation to do this training as well. And this continues to be something that DDS has continued to focus on in our conference calls and dealing with them, making sure we as a board are kind of up to speed and continue to get appropriate training. Any questions, any discussion, anything, topics or anything else anybody would like to bring up right now?
If I remember from your spreadsheet, this is one of the things we have to answer by the 18th, what our training is.
Yes.
Should we pick some very good topics? Should we pick a couple of those so when you send it up on the 18th, the board at least has 2 or 3 of the quarterly ones picked rather than just saying to be determined?
Certainly. We sent you an extra memo.
Right. Yeah, it's great topics.
And, well, a couple of you had sent us some ideas, so we added those to our own thinking, which was great. And if you want to finalize at least a couple of those, or however you'd like to do that is fine. We'd be glad to do that.
Does DDS also want the calendar for the quarterly training?
I think that would be helpful. But again, we haven't looked at dates or months that you might be interested in doing that.
We can just plug them in and, if we have to change them, we change them.
You can do that, sure.
I think one of the things that was very beneficial for me was the tour that we had, to be able to go to every department and have a report from them. I know we have several new people on the board, and I think that might be a very, very valuable tool for them.
Okay.
I'll go for that. I think it's a great idea.
I think you're right, Alma. I think the board really learned a great deal that day. And staff enjoyed it also. Because they got to talk with the board members and meet them.
You can see the happiness on their faces. Okay, so that's our number 1?
Pardon?
Is that our number 1 item?
Sure.
I liked it. Me too. What about the Charity Integrity Act? I never even heard of that until today.
Well, it was what applies to nonprofits, just like Sarbanes-Oxley applies to profit-making corporations. It was the bill that was passed for nonprofit corporations. But it's a little dry, so we'd have to spice it up a little bit, maybe add something with it. But certainly it does apply to, and it's probably something you do need to be familiar with.
Our name goes on the 990.
Yes, it does.
It's basically for the 501c3, correct?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, our name goes on this, and it goes to Internal Revenue. And
Oh, that's what that person was asking, if we posted those on the website.
Yes, and we do.
Yeah, no, now it's falling into place.
Oh, okay. It is a requirement
slow
that 501c3s do have to post that information. And it goes up after the audit has been completed and our taxes have been filed.
And our names go on it, that we approved it.
Yeah, it probably says I'm the treasurer or something.
It does.
Yeah, right. Well, that's number 2
It
then.
does.
Yeah, probably somebody's gonna bring it to me one night late. Say, this is due tomorrow, sign here, yeah. Yeah.
I'm hoping you'll read it, because my name's on it, and I'd like you to audit it and really go over it after.
Did you hear that, Gus? I like the advocate thing. Because I think it's something we as a board should be doing more of. I'm going to shut up. I've already said 3 things. It's the number 2. What does it mean to be an advocate? What skills do I have? I don't. How do I talk with elected officials? I don't. But I think it's something we need to do more of.
It's something we need to do more of.
Yeah. And that would give us 3. That takes us, till after the first of the year.
Well, yeah, certainly you could do, if you did them quarterly, you could get 2 done within those first 6 months and then 2 more
Right.
in the next 6. Anybody else see some things that you would like to pursue or like to understand a little better? Christina, do you need a copy of that?
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, here. I've already said my piece, Christina. can have a piece. That's fine.
If you want to just send me your thoughts, as long as I have them by Friday, then I'll put together a temporary schedule for us. And it sounds like that probably the tour would be like the first thing. And then, do you want to do the Charity Integrity Act and maybe the whole auditing process and some of that kind of stuff?
I think that's a good idea, especially if we're going to publish it on the web.
Okay. And then advocacy might be in January. February, something like that.
And then the state will be happy. We'll be happy. We'll be
Oh,
happy.
yeah, you'll have a good calendar to work with. Good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and finally this evening, we do have one late request for some public input. Peter?
Hi, well, I'm an education advocate, and I've had very few dealings with the regional center. In fact, under the new regime, all I've experienced is that the regional center is paid for an advocate to help out one of my clients, so I don't have anything to be mad about. However, and I wasn't planning to say anything, I was planning to come and listen. However, when I came here, since I've never been here before, first off, I found it very difficult to find a meeting. I walked all the way around the building, and finally the security guard saw me, stupidly banging, on doors and stuff, and finally guided me here, and somebody came and opened the door. So it would be nice in future to have a little signage to point people to the right place, and that the door should be unlocked so that latecomers and ignorant people like me should be able to get in here without too much trouble. Secondly, Another thing I wasn't going to mention, but since Kirsty got up and talked about it, and since you all wanted suggestions for training, it all came together. A one-size-fits-all policy, such as is described concerning the Autism Committee, is a violation of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And in fact, the Office for Civil Rights, whether it's the one in Human Services or whether it's the one in Education, you guys would be dealing with Human Services, will definitely ding people for doing that. It's not okay if that's what's being done. And I don't know for sure it's being done, but from what I've heard, maybe it is. It's easy, I suppose, when you're dealing with DDS all the time to just not notice the legal requirements under the ADA and 504. They're there, and you got to meet them because you're federal recipients. So it would be good, definitely, to get some training in Section 504 and ADA and how things go. For example, if you have more than 15 employees, you have to have a 504 coordinator. If you have more than 50 employees, you have to have an ADA coordinator. I don't know whether you do. You have to have a grievance procedure under both of those acts. I don't know whether you do, but if you do, I haven't seen it published, and it's supposed to be published. So there's a lot of stuff like that that ought to be tidied up, and so it would be good to tidy that up, and I'm recommending an area of training.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we come to the end of our public meeting. But we do have executive session, so don't wander too far, board members. The rest of you, thank you very much. Good luck with your